So first, we have from the Cordillera Administrative Region, Mayor Brian Bacwaden of Bisao Mountain Province, Mayor Brethen Jairi Crisologo of Tineg Abra, Mayor Edmore Crisologo of Lagayan Abra, Mayor Jimmy Panchadanan of Mayoyaw Ifugao. From Region 1, we have Mayor Ernesto Acain of Labrador, Pangasinan, Mayor Severino Carnonel of Santo Tomas La Union, Mayor Belen Fernandez of Dagupan City, Mayor Romel Lebasan of Pinili, Ilocos Norte, Mayor Mary Claire Judith Phyllis Kiambao of Bayambang, Pangasinan, Mayor Brian Dexter Tadena of Santo Domingo, Ilocos Sur, Mayor Dickerson Villar of Santo Tomas, Pangasinan, Mayor Cristel Singson of Candon City, Mayor Caroline Garvida of Nueva Eira, Ilocos Norte. From Calabarzon, we have Mayor Orlan Calayag of Dolores, Quezon, Mayor Glenn Flores of Aluminos, Laguna, Mayor Maria Mariaden Isaac of Ginayangan, Quezon, Mayor Seller Rizal of Calamba City, Laguna, Mayor Cesar Inares of Binangonan, Rizal, and Vice Mayor Arnel Abisede of Lucban, Quezon. From Region 5, we have Mayor Jesus Camara of Libmanan, Camarines Sur, Mayor Melanie Garcia of Del Gallego, Camarines Sur, Mayor Romeo Moreno of Paracalle, Camarines Sur, Vice Mayor Vivian Villamor of San Vicente, Camarines Sur. From Region 6, we have Mayor Jose Nadi Arceo of Hinigaran, Negros Occidental, Mayor Joji Barcelona of Don Salvador, Benedicto, Negros Occidental, Mayor Filomeno Ganzon and Vice Mayor Manuel Ganzon of Balasan, Iloilo, Mayor Lawrence Anthony Goriseta of Pavia, Iloilo, Mayor Mateo Hachuela of Dumaraw, Capiz, Mayor Maria Lina Holipas of Leon, Iloilo, Mayor Narciso Havelosa of Sagay City, Mayor Clemens Bandoja of Tibiao, Antique, and Mayor Jose Jeffrey Lumugdang of Kulasi, Antique. We also have Mayor Raymond Malipajo from Mayon, Capiz, Mayor Tito Mayo of Cuartero, Capiz, Mayor Michael Ramos of Batan, Aklan, Mayor Daph Anthony Reliquias of Hinobaan, Negros Occidental, Mayor Millard Villanueva of Concepcion, Iloilo, and Mayor Melesio Yap Jr. of Escalante City, Negros Occidental. From Region 7, we have Mayor Jonah Pat Aviles of Zamboanguitan, Negros Oriental, and Mayor Romulo Manuta of Bohok, Bohol. From Region 8, we have Mayor Jonah Adan of Liloan, Cebu, Mayor Hermenegildo Culpa of Padre Burgos, Southern Leyte, Mayor Angelita de Lusa of Dagami, Leyte, Mayor Francisco Aurelio Rosales III of Catarman, Northern Samar, Mayor Manuel Honor of Silago, Southern Leyte, Mayor Gary Lavin of San Antonio, Northern Samar, Mayor Evelyn Lee of Hinundayan, Southern Leyte, Mayor Ronaldo Liv of Mahaplag, Leyte, Mayor Eduardo Ong of Cariaga, Leyte, Mayor Roy Salinas of San Ricardo, Southern Leyte, Mayor Remedio Veloso of San Isidro, Leyte, and Mayor Manuel Villahermosa of Hilongos, Leyte. From Region 10, we have Mayor Grelina Lim of Baroy, Lanao del Norte, Mayor Randy Macapil of Linamon, Lanao del Norte. We also have Mayor Judith Maquibias of Bacolod, Lanao del Norte, Mayor Jabbar Tago of Pantar, Lanao del Norte, Mayor Angel Yap of Lala, Lanao del Norte. Also from Caraga, we have Mayor Simon 𝐇𝐀𝐏𝐏𝐄𝐍𝐈𝐍𝐆 of Santa Josefa, Agusan del Sur, and Mayor Lorefe Otaza of Loreto, Agusan del Sur. So in few minutes, we will start our session for this morning. If I was not able to mention some, kindly inform us in the chat box. Thank you. We would like to acknowledge our local implementing agencies who are joining with us this morning. We have from the National Capital Region. We also have participants from the cities and municipalities of Cordillera Administrative Region, Region 1, 2, and 3, Calabarzon, Mimaropa, Region 5, Region 6, 7, and 8, Region 10, Region 11, and Caraga. All right, so again, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Stakeholder Consultation of the Implementing Rules and Regulations of the Republic Act 11966, or the Public-Private Partnership Code of the Philippines. This is Shelo Regalado of the PPP Center's Capacity Building Division, your facilitator for this session. Currently, we have more than 300 participants in the Zoom meeting room, and we also have colleagues who are tuned in via the PPP Center's official Facebook and YouTube accounts. So to ensure a smooth discussion, allow me to share with you a few house rules. This session is being recorded via Zoom for documentation purposes. Also, please change your display name into LGU underscore first name and last name to easily recognize you, especially during the open forum. This one is for the Zoom participants, while for those watching via Facebook and YouTube Live, kindly put your name and LGU whenever you have questions or inputs. To avoid any disruptions during the session, kindly keep your cameras and audios muted. And again, we encourage everyone to engage and participate. Please send us your questions and inputs to the draft IRR. The assigned PPP Center training team will be documenting them. Also, please accomplish the online attendance form and the evaluation form. My colleagues from the PPP Center will be sharing the links in our chat box and comments section. Remember, we need your attendance so we can send the presentation materials to your registered email addresses. And lastly, we encourage everyone to foster a safe space by being open and respectful to everyone. Now let's run through the flow of our session for today. We're almost done with the opening activity and shall proceed immediately with the main discussion portion, divided into 3 parts. We'll proceed to the first part of the discussion, then we will have a quick health break after the second discussion, and closing activities after the last discussion and open forum. Please note that our resource person will pause at the end of each part to entertain possible questions and clarifications and inputs. And now, to officially open this activity, may I call on the Undersecretary for Project Development Management of the Department of Interior and Local Government, Attorney Odilon L. Pasaraba, to deliver his opening remarks.
Okay. Yeah, thank you so much, PPP Center. And of course, magandang umaga sa ating lahat. Sa ngalan po ni Secretary 𝐐𝐏𝐏𝐄𝐍𝐈𝐍𝐆, akin pong i-extend ang kanyang pasasalamat at pangungumusta sa bawat lokal na pamahalaan nandirito ngayon sa ating stakeholdership meeting, consultation meeting, and sa lahat ng mga local officials, local chief executives, at mga local functionaries. Kasama rin natin ang ating mga DILG regional directors and of course ang mga opisyales ng DILG mula sa probinsya, syudad, munisipyo, at ang kanilang mga technical staff as well. Sa ating mga partners from NEDA, from the Office of the President, of course, the BBM, the Department of Finance, the DTI, DNR, DSWD, of course, the PPP Center. Again, it's the first Wednesday of February, isang mapagpalang umaga sa ating lahat. Kami naman sa DILG ay lubos na nagpapasalamat sa PPP Center, katuwang ang lahat ng ating mga national government agencies, kasama na rin ang ating lokal na pamahalaan sa pagbabalangkas ng bagong Public-Private Partnership Code of the Philippines. And dahil sa this is a new PPP code, it is important or imperative that we need to consult our important stakeholders, at yan po ang ating mga lokal na pamahalaan. Thank you so much, PPP Center, for center staging a platform that will necessitate the need to be heard, the need to consolidate and crystallize our discourses, as well as deliberations and inputs from our local government units. Consultation is a fundamental process or mechanism wherein we need to solidify national government agencies' policies, particularly coming from our local government units. Sa ating mga lokal na pamahalaan, marami na pong magandang ehemplo that really pave way for a successful PPP projects. And in the local governance ecosystem, we put primacy to private sector's role and as well as their importance in strengthening local government services delivery at the local level. So it is in this aspect wherein the IRR should be firmed up as well as finalized. So we need the local government units, your expertise, your experiences, the challenges, the nuances, as well as the dynamics of local government units in the entire country will really help beef up, substantiate, as well as clarify our IRR or the implementing rules and regulations of the new PPP Code of the Philippines. In the light of the DILG leadership, I would like as well to thank the Bureau of Local Government Division, or I mean Bureau of Local Government Development Bureau, led by Director Ana Bonagua and of course her technical staff. Maraming salamat for taking the lead in opening this platform as well as making this possible for an open engagement as well as a healthy deliberation and discussion with our stakeholders. Once again, on behalf of Secretary 𝐐𝐏𝐿𝐽𝐶, ang lokal na pamahalaan or umaambag ang DILG, tumataya ang DILG, that our local government units will shape a stronger and better and more meaningful PPP IRR for better local governance and for a more strengthened partnership with the private sector and the LGU. Sa inyong lahat, maraming salamat.
Thank you very much, Yusek Pasaraba. Let's give him a virtual round of applause. Before we proceed to the next part of the activity, may I invite everyone to kindly open their cameras for a quick photo opportunity with Yusek Pasaraba. My colleagues here will help me capture this moment. Okay, hold your smiles for 5 seconds.
Once again, maraming salamat.
Thank you, Yusek Pasaraba. So I hope you're ready to start with our discussion. Without further ado, allow me to introduce our resource speaker. To discuss the salient provisions under the PPP Code of the Philippines, let us all welcome the Deputy Executive Director of the PPP Center, DD Jeffrey I. Manalo. DD Jeff?
Yes, hello, good morning, everyone. Just a sound check. Can I be heard clearly?
We can hear you, DD Jeff.
All right, thank you. So, magandang umaga, Luzon, Visayas, Mindanao. Thank you for our mayors and other local officials and the fellow staff in the government who attended and spent time for this session. Before I go to my uh, prepared the PowerPoint presentation, I would normally give just 3 points to set the tone of our discussion. And of course, thank you to Yusek Pasaraba and the entire DILG team for partnering with us. No, on behalf of the IRR committee, we really appreciate everyone's presence here today. So the first one is that this law that we will be cascading to everyone is a product of more than 10 years of legislative work and actual experience on the ground. It has tried to capture the good practices and implement the lessons we have learned over the past 30 years that we have been implementing PPPs in the country. And so as it tries to balance every provision in this law, almost every single provision is a hard balance, hard exercise to balance the interests of both the public sector as well as the private sector. And finally, after more than 10 years of legislative work, we've finally come into this version of the law that was signed and has become effective. And we are now at the point where we're drafting the implementing rules and regulations. And even if so many brains have worked on this, we at the PPP Center would be the first agency to say that this is not the perfect PPP law. But we are confident, along with the rest of the executive branch and our fellow legislators, that as we draft these implementing rules and regulations, we would be able to make this work and for the law to be able to achieve all of its objectives. The second one is I'd like to share the guidance of the president himself as he was guiding us in the course of drafting and proposing this bill with our legislators. Specifically for local PPPs, his guidance was that we need to empower local governments, encourage local autonomy in dealing with their public-private partnership projects, but have uh, mechanisms in place where the alignment of national plans and projects and local government plans and projects are well aligned and are well harmonized. And so that is the frame that the IRR committee is taking as we draft the implementing rules and regulations in consultation with various stakeholders. This session is actually, I think, the 16th or the 17th session we've conducted, and I know some of you here might have attended those other sessions. Finally, the third point, on behalf of the IRR committee composed of NEDA, the DOF, the DBM, the Office of the President through the Office of the Executive Secretary, the DTI, the DILG, of course, our partner, especially in this event today, DENR, the PPP Center, CHED, and did I miss anything? I think that's it. And of course, the Department of Justice. So, on behalf of all the members of the IRR committee, our objective for today are two things. No, first is for us to be able to cascade the salient points of the PPP code and the working draft or the working ideas that are being contemplated in the draft implementing rules and regulations. That's number one. Number two is to gather as many insights, inputs, questions as guidance in drafting the implementing rules and regulations. Having said that, let me go to my first slide. So just on the timeline, so we are all aligned. We have been receiving a lot of questions here. The law has been signed last December 5, but the official counting of the 15-day effectivity date of the law started last December 8. This is when the law was published in print. And because of that, the law has officially become effective last December 23. As I've said, the IRR has started, the IRR drafting has started last December 24, and we're in the middle of the 90-day drafting period, which will end on March 23. If everything goes out well, if the IRR is approved by March 23 and we get to publish it on the 23rd, we will have a new implementing rules and regulations on April 7 of this year. For today, we'll be together. Hopefully, makakapit tayo all the way till the end. This is going to be a long discussion because there are so many topics that we want to cover. We will divide the session in 3 blocks. Every block, so it's color-coded on our screens. Every end of block, we will open the floor for questions, comments, inputs. And I may not be able to answer all queries. Mauuna na po akong magsabi. As you know, some of the processes are still not locked in as we are still in the drafting and consultation phase. Rest assured that the entire team here with me are taking notes, and we will definitely elevate these to the Implementing Rules and Regulations Committee or the IRR Committee. Okay, now let's go to the first block. This will cover the scope and coverage of the law, the repealing clause, the transitory provision, the consolidated plans and the list. These are the new terms that we will be introducing in the IRR. And of course, the PPP institutions such as the PPP Governing Board, the PPP Center, the PDMF, and the PPP units of implementing agencies. First, let's go to the scope and coverage. So the law provides for what is covered and excluded in the PPP code. Whereas before, there is a fragmented legal framework. Meron tayong DOT law at implementing rules and regulations. Meron din tayong joint venture guidelines or JV PPP codes for local government units. Some GOCCs would have their charters, special charters, or if you are familiar with the NEDA joint venture guidelines for some GOCCs. So before hiwa-hiwalay ang batas na susundin, under the PPP code, all of them will fall under the same law and will follow the same rules and procedures. So items A, for example, are contractual arrangements between the government and the private partner. Ito yung dating alam natin ng mga BOTs, no? Yung mga build, operate, transfer variations. Pasok na sila sa PPP code. Joint ventures Those that we have, in the case of LGUs, no, we have previously been implementing under our PPP codes. Those will now fall under this law. Okay, and later on, there will be practical implications given this provision of the law. Another clarification that we want to highlight, item D, lease agreements. No? Before, we have been receiving so many questions. Ang PPP ba ay lease? Ano ba yung rules na dapat naming sundin kapag lease yung arrangement namin? So that has been clarified under the law. Those lease agreements with provision of a working capital and or improvement to an existing facility owned by the government, in this case the LGU, for a period of time covering more than 1 year, will fall under the purview of the PPP Code of the Philippines. What I want to highlight in this slide also is that the code excludes certain contractual arrangements that are not PPPs. No, they are not PPPs as far as the law is concerned. What are these? Letter A is all or are all infrastructure projects undertaken through 9184. So if you use the procurement law, that is not a PPP. That's a traditional procurement, an infrastructure that is built using the traditional method. Item B, joint venture and lease agreements involving purely commercial arrangements. So what example, how do we differentiate joint ventures na excluded and lease agreements na excluded doon sa lease agreements and joint ventures na sabi ko kanina, pasok sa PPP. So the operative word is purely commercial arrangements. So during the deliberations in Congress, the examples that were being discussed by our legislators and ourselves, no, this is an illustrative example. If, for example, an LGU owns a piece of land and wants to enter into a contractual arrangement with a private sector partner to build an infrastructure facility, if the subject land or the subject facility that we want to put up, say a public transport terminal, is within the mandate of the LGU, of course, a delivery of public service, then that contractual arrangement is covered by the PPP code. Okay. However, given the same property, so in the same example, I am an LGU, I have a piece of land, but I want to enter into a contractual arrangement with a private sector partner. But the private sector partner, the facility that we're discussing is, say, for example, a mall, no? SM Mall or Ayala Mall or yung ating mga conglomerates, no, na mall that is purely commercial in nature. Ano bang meron sa mall, di ba? Panay mga retail stores, etc., etc. So even if I am using that land of the LGU, but the subject of the infrastructure, the subject infrastructure is not for public service or is involving purely commercial arrangement, then that is not a PPP or that is excluded under the PPP code. And yet, there is a question, no? But before that, so apart from JV and lease agreements that are purely commercial arrangements, the law also exclude certain items. Now, on our screen, that would be items C to I, no? Donations, those are not public-private partnerships. In the implementing rules and regulations, each one of those terms will be defined to provide guidance to implementing agencies on what will be covered and what are actually excluded under PPP. Now, still we get a lot of questions. Paano kapag public terminal pero merong mga market or merong commercial center? Mixed yun. So is that a PPP or not? in the proposed IRR provision, and whenever I say proposed IRR provision, and if you see on the slides that there is an indicated proposed IRR provision, these are things that are open for consultation. These are open for comments, inputs, suggestions. These are just proposals. So until the IRR is issued, this is not yet final, no? So, okay, now I go back. Sabi ng law, it's clear what is included and what is excluded. But the question we've been receiving is that what if mixed? May commercial tapos merong public service. To avoid confusion, the proposed IRR provision is to state that for the avoidance of doubt, any infrastructure project where the government is a contracting party and which has a component that delivers public service shall be considered as a PPP and shall therefore follow the rules of the code and its IRR. For purposes of the IRR, infrastructure projects that will be listed as part of the eligible types of PPPs are to be considered projects that deliver public service. So itong mga boxes na nasa screen natin ngayon, if the subject infrastructure of the contractual arrangement that you are intending to enter into contains at least a component of any of this, then it is a PPP that should follow the rules and regulations of the PPP code. So that is at least the proposal on hand. Second, the law says, if you remember, in the PPP codes of LGUs, and in the BOT law, there is a listing of the different PPP modalities, no? Sometimes nakalagay nga pati yung BOT variants, no? BOT, BLT, ROT, etc. And the question has always been, pwede ba kaming mag-mix and match pa? So the law says, now clarifies that yes, any contractual arrangement may be allowed, provided it shall be approved by the appropriate approving body. In the proposed implementing rules and regulations, we would like to clarify the timing of that approval. Before, in the previous laws, the approval for the contractual arrangement has a separate presidential approval. So because the intent of the law is to fast track and facilitate PPPs, there's no need for a separate approval. The contractual arrangement that is being proposed shall be part of the parameters, terms, and conditions that will be proposed as part of the project details to be evaluated by the appropriate approving body. So just one approval process lang tayo. Okay, now I go to the next slide, still on scope and coverage. Many have been asking, how do we define project cost? Because that will determine, in some cases, the needed clearances for a PPP project. And so in the proposed implementing rules, and so the law has provided a definition, but in the proposed implementing rules and regulations, those items in red font are proposed to be added to avoid confusion and to make sure we are all calculating the project cost at the same using the same methodology. So first, for the avoidance of doubt, interests and other financing costs incurred during construction will be considered as part of the project cost. And second, for O&M PPP projects without initial capital expenditure, the government borrowing rate shall be the discount rate to be used in determining the present value of the costs incurred in delivering the contracted services. In the past, ang project cost kapag O&M, because it pertains to CapEx, is zero, which is not actually not a representative of the actual investment that is being made on the infrastructure. But because of this new definition, we'll have a more accurate picture, a relatively more accurate picture of the project cost. So ang sabi, kapag purely O&M, without initial CapEx, It will be the present value of the costs incurred in delivering the asset throughout the concession period, and the discount rate to be used is the government borrowing rate. Okay. That's the first part. I now go to the repealing clause. This is section 37 of the PPP code. It says, upon effectivity of this code, no other joint venture guidelines, PPP guidelines, codes, or ordinances whatsoever may be enacted, issued, and or used by any government entity to enter into PPPs except those that are enacted, issued, and or used in accordance with this code and its IRR. I have a few things to highlight here based on the questions we have been receiving since the law was passed. Number one, there is no explicit repeal for local PPP codes. Does this mean we can still use our existing process for processing our PPP codes? The answer is the answer is no if it is not consistent with the law and the implementing rules and regulations. If I may just share, during the deliberations, our legislators didn't want a specific, an explicit repeal provision in the PPP codes of local government units in honor or in respect of the autonomy of LGUs, no, because it's the LGUs who enacted this. Let the LGUs act on their respective PPP codes. Anyway, when this law gets passed and the implementing rules and regulations have been issued, our LGUs will see that the process for developing, evaluating, approving, procuring, bidding, all the way up to monitoring and implementing PPPs will now fall under this new law, the PPP Code of the Philippines. And so the LGUs could act accordingly as far as their old local PPP codes are concerned. So that is the story behind the why there is no explicit repeal. That's the first one. Sa madaling salita, when the law became effective, we should all now be following the rules under this code if the project that we're talking about is a PPP, as we have discussed in the previous slide. Number two, so bawal na ba kami mag-issue ng any ordinance tungkol sa PPP? The answer is also no, because LGUs still retain their local autonomy to issue PPP ordinances so long as it is not inconsistent with the law. What does this mean? The law and the IRR will cover the processing of the project, the rules in processing the project. However, as you will see later, it will provide certain flexibility in terms of implementation on the part of the local government unit. For example, the law provides that there shall be a PBAC, a Bids and Awards Committee. And the IRR, for instance, would provide the minimum composition. That minimum is just the minimum. So the LGUs may internally issue their own ordinances on how they wish to implement the expansion or the membership, additional membership of their or the selection process of their PBACs. So that is still within the power of the local government unit. And finally, number three, the question, okay, since ni-repeal yung aming PPP code and there is now a new PPP code of the Philippines which covers LGUs, do we still need as LGUs to enact a new ordinance so that we could implement this law? The answer is also no. This law and the IRR that we are drafting now and will be effective by April will be the enabling law that LGUs can use as the legal basis and to guide the procedures in processing PPPs. There's no need to issue separate processes, separate ordinance, taking care of the processes or the processing of PPP projects. Okay, so having said that, in the proposed IRR provision, and we have received so many feedback from LGUs themselves, no, asking to provide more clarity because of the silent repeal in the code. So the proposed wording in the IRR is to declare that the PPP codes of LGUs, when the law and its IRR becomes effective, will be inoperable because, again, the procedures will now be embedded in the law. Okay, now I go to transitory provisions. Hold on. For the transitory provisions, this is the section of the law which provides for what happens to a PPP project that is being processed, and then the law became effective. So for the transitory provision, before I go to my slide, I'd like to share the deliberations in Congress and in the Senate. So there were two instructions that were given, the intent of the transitory provision that was embedded in the final version of the law. Two things. First, there shall be no infringement of rights in the contracts of PPP contracts, no, of PPP projects that were executed prior to the effectivity of the law. It is not the intent to change what have been agreed by parties already prior to the effectivity of the law. Number two, for those projects being processed, not yet executed, but are in the middle of processing, the law should not cause unnecessary delay in processing the PPP project. And given those two guidelines, the law and in this proposed IRR provisions that you will see, the general rule that is being put in place is that the enactment of the code shall not affect all or alter the parameters, terms, and conditions. The parameters, terms, and conditions basically refer to the project details, no? The terms of the project, the terms of the contract. But we will we will be using the term PTC paulit-ulit in the course of this presentation. So it will not alter the PTCs of PPP projects that have already been approved by the appropriate approving body prior to the effectivity of the law. And that the same principle will be followed for those that are being in the middle of being processed. So how do we operationalize this? First, for existing PPP projects with signed contracts prior to the effectivity of the code, the code will be applied suppletorily, no? As long as it does not infringe upon established rights. What is a practical example of this? Those contracts that have been executed will not be changed. But because the law now requires some reportorial requirements, because part of the aim of the law is to come up with a national database of all PPP contracts, national and LGU PPP contracts, then there are some reportorial requirements that you will see in the law. So that one, as that reportorial requirement does not infringe upon established rights and obligations, because public contracts are considered public anyway, that rule in the PPP code will apply even if the contract has been signed prior to the effectivity of the law. Okay? But if it is about a provision that will change the terms of the contract, that would then that wouldn't take effect, no? Hindi yun intent ng PPP code. Next, for PPP projects na meron ng nanalong bidder pero hindi pa lang napirmahan ang kontrata. So PPP code will apply except for the rules provided in the instructions to bidders or kung meron na yung conditions stated in the notice of award. So the idea is that the general idea is kung naging effective yung law, kung nasaan yung stage ng project, kung nasaan yung project mo, all of the previous processes are considered valid. The PPP code will only apply in the next phase. So in this case, since the bidding has already commenced, so may nanalo na hindi pa lang napipirmahan yung kontrata, the provision states that the instructions to bidders and the conditions in the notice of award will remain valid, no? And the composition of the Special Bids and Awards Committee, the Project Bids and Awards Committee, the JV Selection Committee, or kung anumang tawag dun sa bidding committee na yon, they will remain valid. Okay? Now I go to the third item. This one for solicited PPP projects which have been published an invitation to bid prior to the effectivity of the code. So meaning nasimulan na yung bidding, no? Nakapag-publish na ng invitation for bidding. What is the impact of the PPP code? The PPP code shall apply except for the bidding rules or any amendments made by the PBAC, and the PPP code may be used as reference for gaps in the rules of the bidding committee. Anong ibig sabihin nito? Kung na-start mo na yung bidding, you don't need to go back to zero. You just continue what is the ongoing bidding, and the bidding rules that you have issued will not be affected by the new rules under the PPP code. The PPP code will only apply in the next stage. So the next stage is implementation, no? Kasi tatapusin natin yung procurement phase, mag-a-apply lang yung PPP code again during award, after award na. Okay? And then another set of project stage, no? This time naman for unsolicited PPP projects na naka-start na nung comparative challenge or Swiss challenge or depende kung anong tawag niyo dun sa challenge process prior to the effectivity of the PPP code. So in this case, no, the law will also apply but not in the comparative challenge rules. Again, same principle. Tuloy yung comparative challenge process, you will not go back to zero. And the PPP code may be used as reference kung merong kulang, no? If there are gaps in the rules, then the BAC may use the PPP code. But as a general rule, what you have issued before will be valid for this particular project and you may continue processing the project. There's also a note that the pre-qualification rules used at the start of the comparative challenge shall also apply to all challengers, no? So, para pareho yung standards na ginamit natin. And that the original proponent status conferred, and kung meron nang na-issue na successful negotiation, they shall remain valid and effective. Okay? And then, item group 5, no? This one naman is for solicited and unsolicited projects which use the BOT law. So this does not apply kapag ang project ninyo ay local PPP code ang gamit, no? This item 5 is only for BOT law projects which are already approved for bidding, so naaprubahan na, pero hindi pa na-issue yung invitation to bid, no, before the effectivity of the PPP code. So the proposed IRR provision is that those projects the invitation to pre-qualify and bid shall be published immediately. So same principle, tuloy pa rin. And the PPP code shall apply for the bidding or comparative challenge projects and the succeeding stages. Okay, now if I go to the next slide, ito naman, still on BOT law, pero pending yung approval. No? Kanina na-approve. Ito naman, mas naipit siya sa kalagitnaan ng approval process. If you're using the BOT law, the rule is that they shall be processed under the approval rules in effect at the time of submission to the appropriate approving body. So the new law has a new approval framework, but that will not be followed by those projects that are pending in the approval stage when the law became effective. So again, same principle. All of the things that have happened are valid. Continue the existing process. Mag-a-apply lang yung new rule in the next stage. So once ma-approve na yung project, then what do you call this? Then mag-a-apply na during the procurement phase yung PPP code. Okay. Question, what if ma-approve yung project? Okay, then the next stage, that is the bidding stage, applicable na yung PPP code. Eh what if hindi ma-approve? If hindi ma-approve yung project, the project may be resubmitted, but it will now go through the process under the PPP code and its implementing rules and regulations. Okay, now this one is interesting. This time, for unsolicited proposals naman, still using the BOT law, pero pending yung approval, no? So, what does the proposed IRR provision say? Again, this is for those implementing using the BOT law, no? So the agency will have the original proponent, okay? The law gives the power to the original proponent, the private sector partner. Two options. One, the OP can choose to still continue with the approval process following the BOT law. Or two, the OP can choose to resubmit the proposal under the PPP code and its IRR without losing their original proponent status. Okay? So, ang option ay nandoon sa private sector partner. Now, what happens if the OP chooses option 1 or if they wish to proceed with under the existing rules, no? So if the project is currently under negotiation, kasi yung approval phase natin under the BOT law is from submission to the approving body all the way up to the final NEDA board or final sanggunian approval. So kasama dun sa gitna yung negotiation kapag BOT law. If the project is currently under negotiation, or failed to reach successful negotiation after having secured the approval of the PTCs for negotiation, the project shall proceed following the negotiation process under the PPP Governing Board resolution. So this rule, the PPP Governing Board resolution on negotiation, is already posted in the website of the PPP Center. Now, if the project secures the approval of the negotiated PTCs, then the PPP code and its IRR mag-a-apply na doon sa bidding process, as I've mentioned earlier. But if it fails to get the approval for the negotiated terms, the project will be returned to the implementing agency and may be resubmitted, but this time using the rules under the PPP code. Now, what if mag-resubmit na lang sila? So, the PPP, if they do that, the PPP code approval process and rules will apply. Okay? Which we will be discussing later. And finally, on the transitory provision, those that are non-BOT, and marami dito papasok na mga LGUs, no? Because ito yung PPP, kasama dito ang mga local PPP codes. What happens if the PPP project is pending approval by the relevant approving authority prior to the effectivity of the law? So it states that the law states that for those na hindi BOT law yung gamit, so included dito ang local JV, pending the approval of the relevant approving may pending approval ng relevant government bodies, the rules and procedures under the PPP code shall apply. So the new code will be used, no, as far as the process is concerned. However, you will learn later that there is not so much difference, especially if you're using your PPP codes, no. Malaki yung difference niya dun sa BOT law, but medyo similar siya sa approval process ng local PPP codes. So we'll talk about that later. Before I open the floor, I just have a few more slides on the PPP institutions. No? So the PPP Center was institutionalized under the code and was given additional functions as seen on the screen. So that would include, we can be a procurement agent upon the request of the IA, but the proposed IRR provision will state that there will be a process on how this will be implemented. No? And number two, we will be reviewing PPP contracts of national projects. Number three, we need to come up with a database, the repository of all PPP project information and documents. And we can issue non-policy matter opinions. So pag may mga questions tayo on PPP, some of you may have asked us before and it was hard for us to answer because we didn't have the mandate to guide you. This time, the PPP Center has the power to issue non-policy matter opinions. There's also the management of the risk management fund, which we will be discussing later. And to help guide yung mga PPP units of our implementing agencies, including local government units. Other institutions institutionalized in the law are the PPP Governing Board. So DILG is a new member, as well as DENR, CHED, and PPP Center. DILG is an important addition to the PPP Governing Board because they will represent the local government units, no, and local PPPs in the board. The PPP Governing Board is the policy setting board. No, that's why DILG is also a member of the Implementing Rules and Regulations Committee. And the PDMF, the Project Development and Monitoring Facility, some of you may have heard about this. This is a fund that the PPP Center is managing, which we use to procure transaction advisors and consultants who can help do the feasibility studies, manage the bidding of PPP projects. No? And this will include local government units also. So this has been institutionalized in the law. So this is a welcome provision for those LGUs who has a limited capacity na gumawa ng mga feasibility study. Meron po tayong fund na pwedeng matap para makakuha tayo ng consultants na gagawa nitong mga feasibility studies na ito. And then finally, PPP units, no? So right now, iba-iba, before the PPP code, iba-iba ang ating mga structure, no? May mga nagtatanong, dapat ba ako gumawa ng PPP unit? Dapat ba ako magkaroon ng sariling PPP center? Pwede bang isang tao lang? Pwede bang tatlo? Etc. So the new law says that IAs may form a dedicated PPP unit. The law uses the word may because not all LGUs already have PPPs, no? So if you don't have a PPP project or you don't intend to do PPPs, then probably there's no need to create one, no? So the law does not require it explicitly. What the law and the IRR will provide is a guidance on how the PPP unit will operate, no? Or how, what their tasks are and the composition. So first, the PPP unit shall be responsible in planning, overseeing, implementing, and monitoring PPP projects to be implemented. If it's not a dedicated PPP unit, an alternative at the minimum will be an establishment of a committee or a group within the LGU to serve as focal persons for PPP projects. And at the minimum shall be composed of the following: a senior official, a technical personnel for project development, someone for contract management, one for finance personnel, and the other legal personnel. Probably some of you might be asking, ang konti na nga namin, ang dami nyo pang inire-require. Based on lessons learned, if the LGU is serious in undertaking a long-term PPP undertaking with a private sector partner, one of the key factors in its success is a dedicated group composed of these individuals, so that the LGU can leverage its authority and its capacity with its private sector partner. We've had horror stories where, walang capacity si LGU, pumasok sa kontrata, and now they are having difficulty dealing with their private sector partner. So that is what the law is trying to avoid. And finally, item 4, item 4, we know that many municipalities do not have legal officers, no, as part of their plantilla. And the law recognizes that, as well as the IRR. So the provision is saying it shall seek the legal advice from either an external legal advisor. So this provides for a legal basis to hire your external legal advisor, or you can tap the legal officer of the next higher level of LGU. Okay, so to help and assist in the PPP unit. And finally, you have the PPP Center, who can provide technical assistance and capacity development in the dedicated PPP unit. I think that's the last item. Oh, sorry. Let's there's a last topic before I open the floor. In the IRR, we are introducing the concept of a consolidated investment program, and because the law, I think what I want what I want us to remember is that this concept that we are introducing will be important when we discuss the approval process and the unsolicited proposal later on, no? But in the meantime, let's just take note. There is a consolidated investment program. This is a list of master plans, sector plans, no, local development plans, including PIPs, the TRIP, yung mga LDIP, ang inyong mga regional development and investment plans, and other sector plans, no? According to the proposed IRR provision, government entities, so this would include LGUs, shall submit all official plans to NEDA within 30 calendar days from the effectivity of the IRR. The submitted official plans shall be posted in the websites of the NEDA and PPP Center. So you could just imagine, finally, we will have, or at least it is being envisioned, that all plans, national and local plans, will be consolidated in a single platform, no? And then, why is it important? Let's go to the next stage, next slide. The law requires that only projects that are included in the consolidated plans shall be included in the list of PPP projects. Okay? So, ibig sabihin, kailangan nasa priority ng LGU para gawin niyang PPP project yung isang infrastructure project. So, ano ngayon yung requirement, no? The IA, according to the IRR, the draft, the being proposed, shall prepare the list, the pipeline of PPP projects, which shall include certain information, no? And these shall also be posted in the websites of the PPP Center. Later on, I will explain why it's needed there, no, to be published. As far as unsolicited proposals naman are concerned, we will be publishing it, yung unsolicited proposal kapag ka na-receive ng PPP Center, no? And later I will explain why that is also important. So just a reminder, in the proposed IRR provision, it states that the IA shall submit to the NEDA, PPP Center, the RDC, LDC, and the local sanggunian within 30 calendar days from the effectivity of this IRR, yung kanilang list of PPP projects. The IA may update this at any time, no? So it can be a working list. But every time it's updated, the data has to be provided to the PPP Center, because we need an updated list of projects at any given time, because there is an implication for unsolicited proposals. Now, projects may also be delisted, as I was saying earlier, no? And there will be rules on automatic delisting. But the concept is simple. We will have a consolidated plan and a list of PPP projects, no? So all national and LGU plans are in the websites of NEDA and PPP Center, and the implementing agencies' PPP projects should be anchored in those plans. Let me now open the floor for comments and questions.
Thank you, Jeff. Now we proceed to the open forum for the first block. We have one question from Facebook. This is from Ms. Maricel Rapinian from the Municipal Government of General Mariano Alvarez, Cavite. She said, is the fuel station operation inside the terminal covered by PPPs?
Fuel station, I'm sorry, come again?
Is fuel station operation inside the terminal covered by PPPs?
Okay, this one's a tricky question, no? Because it will depend on how the contract was structured and what the scope of the contract is. So if the contract is a public terminal and a fuel station, and then part of the contract is operation of a public terminal, so parang pareho component sila, no? Then that is a PPP, and depending I would caution our colleagues asking specific examples, no? I will need to put a caveat that our answers will be for illustrative purposes, no? Because at the end of the day, it will depend on how the contract is structured. Kasi may mga risk allocation pa yan, depende dun sa risk sharing nung public sector and nung private sector. So yun, the short answer is, if the contract contains both, meaning really part of the scope is to deliver public transport service and then an operation of a fuel station, then yes, it is a PPP. Pero kung ang kontrata lang talaga ay fuel station operation, ang usapan nyo with the private sector is just a contract for a fuel station operation, tapos doon sa station operation, they are allowed under their rights sa inyong lease or joint venture na they can operate privately their terminal, then that is not PPP in that regard, because what binds you with the private sector is just the private fuel station operation. So I hope that that provides a bit of clarity.
Thank you, Didi Jeff. Miss Rodresha Toralio is raising her hand. Ma'am, can you unmute po?
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Hi, sir. Question lang po. If we will be required to, yung magsasubmit po baga after the, nung IIR, we will be submitting the PPPs. Pwede po ba tayo magkaroon ng standard or uniform na format for us para may guide naman po kami or on how are we going to submit it properly?
Yes,
Including
ma'am.
po yung details na kailangan i-include.
Yes, thank you, ma'am. That's a really good insight. And yes, we are preparing templates and standard set of info that will be required to be submitted. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Another question. Is a dialysis center can enter into PPP, considering the LGU shall provide a site where center shall be installed?
Where what will be installed?
Where the center.
Where the center shall be installed. Yes, in fact, we have a good example. We have Baguio General Hospital, although this is not an LGU project, but it is a renal center facility, no? So yes, a dialysis center can be subject of a PPP PPP contract. And we have a project development service who can actually help you, sir, develop your PPP projects. Pasig City, I understand, as their dialysis center. We have assisted them. And Manila also, yeah. So yes, the answer is yes, sir.
All right. We also received one comment in the chat box, but I understand that the topic touches on the processing of the PPP proposal, which I think will be presented by DED Jeff later. So before we proceed to our 5-minute break, are there any other questions, comments, or inputs in the first block of the IRR? You may send them in the chat box or you may raise hand and unmute.
So in case our participants are still absorbing the presentation, I just want to invite everyone, even after this session today, please send us your questions, no matter how general or specific they are, because those will serve as inputs as we draft these implementing rules and regulations. Thank you.
All right, we have another question.
Yes.
Are there programs or projects to be included in the list be considered as a list of solicited proposals of implementing agencies?
Yes, in the law, it actually states that those projects that will be included in the list of PPP projects, your pipeline of projects, are intended to be solicited, no? But don't worry, because the law also says even those projects in the list, so those projects that are intended to be solicited, may be subject of an unsolicited proposal. So later on, we will discuss that also. But the answer to this question is yes. Those to be included shall be considered as the list of the solicited proposals of the LGU.
All right, there's another question. Are all PPP's projects municipal entering must be submitted to the PPP office for review?
No, sir. The short, okay. First, let me contextualize. Yung for review here is for review of the project and or for review of the contract, no? In both cases, no. The PPP office here, if it pertains to our office, the PPP center, no. It will be later on we will have a process for the a discussion on the approval. It will be the Sanggunian, so the PPP center is not required there, as well as in the review of contracts. No, the PPP center's participation is crucial for unsolicited proposals, which we will also discuss later.
All right, next question. This is from Sir Raylan Cortez. How can one avail the assistance for feasibility study?
Yeah, there is an application process. So there are forms that you can apply. Our group can even share with you, maybe through the chat box, the link to the specific link to our website, so that you can be guided.
Next question from Mayor Belen Fernandez of the City Government of Dagupan. Participation of ADB and CDIA to PPP projects.
Yeah, sir, if the question is whether they can help in the development, for instance, of PPP projects, yes, they may help. No, we have experiences where ADB and CDIA have supported the conduct of feasibility studies for PPP projects, and then in partnership with us, shepherded the project all the way through the bidding and then through the implementation phase. ADB,
Next.
on the other hand, is also helping us. If so, that's on the project side, no. Another assistance or participation of ADB, if it's asking about their participation in this PPP code and the implementing rules and regulations, they have experts who are assisting us in researching on and in drafting the implementing rules and regulations. We'd be happy to get more clarification, ma'am, if that does not suffice. Thank you.
Okay. We have another question from Ms. Rodresha Taralo. If we have further queries, where can we send it? May we ask contact number and email address to send our concerns in the future?
I'm sorry, Shello. I think you were reading something else. It's a different question on the screen.
All right. Apologies for that. We have from Miss Camela Semilla this is from the Facebook Live. Can we consider it for PPP, the management and operation by private sector on the LGU owned by Waterworks facility?
Yes, later on, we will have a discussion on water districts, no, and water works facilities of LGUs. But yes, the short answer is yes, and that would be considered a local PPP project.
Okay, next question. Okay, we have another question from Facebook Live. Sir, the transport terminal is being operated by LGU while the fuel station shall be covered by PPP.
Okay, so two different contracts. It appears to be two different. Sorry, not two different contracts, but it appears the contract is only on the fuel station operation. So this appears to be a purely commercial lease. No, if it has no other component or a public service that is being delivered. Therefore, again, this the caveat is this is based on the information that was provided. This is not a comment on the contract that you have, which we are not seeing. So if it is just the the operation of the fuel station, which is purely commercial, then that is not a PPP. So that could be a lease or a JV that's not covered by this law.
All right. One last question from Sir Emmanuel Feli of the Municipal Government of Real. PPP is about government property being partnered to the private sector. Can it be other way around?
So the other way around is that there's a private partner with its asset asking to partner with the government, no? Through a joint venture, for example, sir. Yes, that's also possible. Again, I'm using the word possible, no? Whether that is a good policy or a good model is subject of another discussion. But as far as the law is concerned, yes, parties can contribute their assets or properties, and that applies also on the part of the private sector partner.
All right. That's it for the questions in the first block. We know that there are a lot of questions coming in from Zoom, Facebook, and YouTube Live. Later on, we will be addressing some of these, and we will also be sending a list of Q&A that we will be answering offline. So before we proceed to the next part of the activity, let's have a 5-minute health break. So see you after 5 minutes. to the session. If you're already here, kindly give us a thumbs up or a heart reaction so that we'll know if you're already back in the meeting room. Okay, so I think we're ready to resume our session. May I call back again DD Jeff for his discussion.
Okay. So I now go to the second block of our discussion. So this would cover evaluation and approval of PPP projects, unsolicited proposals, procurement of PPP projects, review and approval of PPP contracts, and the protest mechanism. Okay. Before, the approval framework for PPPs, if you're familiar with the BOT law, the approval framework is project cost based. No, and when we say project cost based, depending on the size of the project, the cost of the project, the approving body or the clearances that are required goes all the way up to the national government. And in the old BOT law, which has been there for quite some time, 30 years, LGU projects costing 200 million and up will require ICC confirmation. So umaakyat siya all the way sa mga secretaries. And we have seen how this has sort of disincentivized LGUs to enter into or to use the BOT law. They just opt to go to joint venture to sort of make the process more efficient, no, or faster. Now, the law, this new PPP code has recognized that, and it has given a totally different framework on how local PPP projects will be approved. So this time, the PPP projects of local government units will please hold on 1 second. There are just how many slides do we have for the evaluation? 2 slides, no? Ano? Okay. Okay. So the approval framework is regardless of project cost. The approving body will be the sanggunian, and it will not have to go through the national government. Only in very specific instances, yung nangangailangan ng clearances from the national government, and we will discuss that later. In the meantime, what the law is providing is that for the specific guidelines on the processing of the approval, the evaluation and approval of PPP projects, we will all be looking at the issuance to be released by the PPP governing board. So in the past, we have been receiving a lot of queries in terms of may natanggap na kaming PPP project. Can we just approve this? Ano ba yung dapat naming tinitignan? Ano ba yung talaga yung rules dito? Can we create our own rules, etc.? So sometimes that capacity gap delays the processing of projects. Hopefully, this issuance, which will provide the templates, the documentary requirements that are needed, as well as the timelines that need to be observed, will be included in the PPP governing board issuance. No, it will cover how to review and approve PPP projects submitted for approval. What are the rules if you want to change the parameters, terms, and conditions prior to bid submission? What will be the process if the sanggunian, no, which is the approving body, wants PTCs outside of what has been negotiated by the executive branch in the PTCs? how to determine the reasonable rate of return for specific instances. Ano ang rule if we want to change the contract or what we want to expand or extend the contract, as well as what happens if the approving body fails to act on the timeline provided under the law. Because under the law, the approving body is given a maximum of 120 calendar days to approve a PPP project. Otherwise, to decide, no? So either an approval or disapproval, regardless of project cost. Otherwise, the project will be deemed approved. So yun ang nasa batas. If we go to the next slide, it will also provide the minimum parameters, terms, and conditions required to be submitted to the appropriate approving body. So in the past, we have had so many instances where complaints have been received because during implementation, ang pangit ng performance ng private sector partner. So they will ask for our help, but we will be very limited because the contract that they entered into is valid, pero yung laman hindi malinaw. Kulang-kulang yung kontrata. So it's always hard to protect and help our LGUs kapag ka nandun na tayo sa sitwasyon na yon. How the law attempts to correct that is by providing the minimum parameters, terms, and conditions that are required as early as the approval stage, so that the sanggunian, for instance, who will be assessing the projects, would more or less know, no, and will be provided with the complete information. So that would be the scope, the contractual arrangement, the contract term, the rights and obligations of the IA and the private proponent, the risk allocation, performance standards and targets that are needed. You know, I have a very an anecdote on this one, no. Siguro basta marami na kaming natanggap na, "Dear PPP Center, please help us. We want to terminate the contract because the performance is really bad. The performance of the private sector is really bad." And then we will request for a copy of the contract. The thing is, they cannot exert or impose because the contract, unfortunately, did not indicate the performance standards that the private sector is required to deliver. So, unfortunately, if the LGU resorts to termination, that also has a chilling effect to investors. Hindi din maganda na pagkatapos nating pumirma, pag hindi natin nagustuhan, terminate agad. So these minimum parameters, terms, and conditions will serve as sort of a guidance to make sure that when we enter a contract, it is complete, and the expectations of the public and the local government units are embedded in the contract itself. Andun din yung government undertakings, investment recovery scheme, contingent liabilities, bid parameter, ceiling for debt to equity ratio, as well as revenue share, if any, no? For solicited projects, the proposed public bidding process, either a single stage or a two-stage, that will be part of it, or in the case of unsolicited proposal, the proposed period for comparative challenge. Now, let's get down to a more specific details. Now, this is currently not in the law. This slide that we are all seeing is a product of an ongoing discussion within the IRR committee, and we are consulting this with our stakeholders today, particularly our local PPP stakeholders, because we would be needing your inputs and comments, no? As a general rule, as I've mentioned earlier, the local approval process is, regardless of project cost, the approving body will be the sanggunian, and the sanggunian has 120 calendar days to decide. But before it goes to the sanggunian, it has to be endorsed. All local PPPs need to be endorsed by the Local Development Council, which shall have 30 calendar days. No? In the law, it says 30 calendar days to issue the endorsement. Now, there are two specific instances, and this was from the president himself. No, when we were designing the policy proposal to our legislators, two specific instances where an approval by the I'm sorry, not approval, but a clearance will be required. Okay, sorry, what happened to our screen? Yeah, okay. Are we back? Yes, okay. So there are two instances where additional clearances for local PPPs are required on the part of the national government. No? An approval on the part of the national government. What are those two? One, if the proposed LGU PPP project requires a national government undertaking. So, for example, the LGU wants to enter into a PPP project with a private partner, pero yung pambayad niya ng availability payment or yung subsidy, gusto niyang i-request kay national government. So that will be requiring an ICC approval of the required government undertaking upon endorsement by the RDC. Okay, but if the ICC does not approve the requested government undertaking, the LGU can proceed to process the project, approve it, implement it, just without the requested national government undertaking. Okay? Second is if the local project affects national projects in the consolidated investment programs and the national projects in the list, no? Those that I was describing earlier before the break, yung consolidated master plan and lists natin. Then an endorsement by the respective RDC is needed. Timelines natin, 30 calendar days for the RDC endorsement, 60 calendar days for the ICC approval. If these are not given, then within if these are not decided on after the period has lapsed, those will be deemed to have been given or endorsed. Now I just go back one slide. So that's the framework, no? Regardless of project cost, approving body is sanggunian. Only two additional clearances ang kailangan from the national government and in very specific instances. One, kapag ka may gustong i-request sa national government. Kapag wala, hindi kailangang pumunta sa ICC. Number two, kapag may babangga or magko-connect na sa isang national facility. In that case, it will be the RDC endorsement. No? But the general rule is kung wala namang effect sa master plan or wala namang kailangan from the national government, then the general rule is the one on our screen. The IA submits to the Local Development Council a letter requesting for LDC confirmation, no? Confirmation that the proposed local PPP project is aligned with the development plan of the local development plan. Okay? So a letter request is one, and then the other is PTC forms. Ito yung sinasabi kong templates which will be issued later on. Now, PTC forms and other documentary requirements which will be included in the PPP Governing Board. Once these complete set of documents are submitted to the LDC, within 30 calendar days, the LDC would have 3 tasks, no? And the proposal is that the LDC Execom will be the one who will process these proposed local PPP projects, and they will do 3 things within the 30 calendar day period. 1, to review if the project is aligned and consistent with the local development plan. 2, to review the proposed project and identify concerns that will aid the decision of the approving body, which is the Sanggunian. And then third, submit the confirmation, including the notes to be considered by the Sanggunian in writing, no? So, and then the approving body, which will have its own secretariat, will conduct a completeness check of the documents submitted, and if complete, it will kick in the 120 calendar day period of the Sanggunian to decide on the proposed project. So what are they going to do? For guidance, the IRR will state that they are supposed to assess the merits of the proposed unsolicited proposal or the project, no, not necessarily the USP. Establish the parameters, no, decision parameters, whether the project is worth pursuing, as well as kung if this is an unsolicited proposal, establish the legal, technical, and financial qualification of the proponent, and then decide whether to approve or disapprove the project. Okay, we have 2 boxes below for more details. The LDC confirmation can either be a confirmation that the proposed project is aligned with its development plans, or a confirmation with conditions or red flags, no, for consideration of the appropriate approving body. As mentioned, it will be the Execom who will be utilized to fast track the processing, the confirmation process. Now, in cases where the appropriate approving body fails to render a decision on the PPP project, the PPP Center shall issue a notice to the approving body that the project has been deemed approved and that the project shall now proceed to the procurement stage within a prescribed number of days. The submitted PTCs, so yung pinakaunang PTC na sinubmit, shall be what will be deemed approved and shall guide the procurement of the PPP project. Okay? Now, what if naman, so this is the general rule, what if naman merong additional clearances na kailangan kasi ma-affect ko yung master plan o kaya meron akong gustong undertaking from the national government. So, the process is, before you go to the local development council, bago yung process na dinescribe natin kanina, you need to submit either to the RDC or to the ICC the requirements needed for those clearances. So, to clarify, RDCs shall only review the alignment of the project with the Consolidated Investments Program and the list, as well as the regional which includes the regional development plans. Not the required government undertaking, no, because the government undertaking has to be assessed by the ICC. The RDC shall also issue, shall utilize naman in the case of RDC, and we know, based on our previous consultations with the RDCs and our NEDA counterparts, sometimes RDCs could be as big as 200, no, membership. So, given the 30 calendar day deadline, it's being proposed that the Standing Committee on the Standing Infrastructure Committee be the one to expedite this review and process the endorsement of that's needed for the proposed project. In case they don't endorse, the LGU or LUC may resubmit the project with appropriate modifications within 7 calendar days. And we also note that prior to this law, sometimes RDCs would only meet once every quarter. Here, in the IRR, there is a proposed provision that meetings of the standing committee of the infrastructure committee will be done monthly unless there is no PPP project to be what do you call this, to be evaluated. Okay, and again, as I've mentioned earlier, the disapproval of the ICC of the requested government undertaking or availability payment shall not be construed as a disapproval of the project. So the even without the support of the national government, they can proceed, no, just without the requested government undertaking. Okay, and then there's an IRR proposed provision clarifying that there could be projects where it's a joint undertaking between a national government agency and a local government unit. In those cases, those may be jointly implemented by both IAs under a single PPP contract, but that they need to secure the approval of all approving bodies. So kung may partner kayong national government agency, they need to secure their approval process and then the approval process also of the local government unit. Okay. Now I go to, so that's the approval framework. Just to recap, 120 calendar days if otherwise deemed approved na. Regardless of project cost, sanggunian. You will not need to go up to the ICC, and there is no need to enact a new PPP ordinance because the implementing rules and regulations and the issuance of the PPP governing board will contain the specific procedures and templates for the approval process. Okay, now I go to unsolicited proposal. This one, before, ang pagpasa ng unsolicited proposal is with the implementing agency or the LGU. Under the law, hindi na po ganoon. The entry point is with the PPP center. The private proponent shall submit the unsolicited proposal to the PPP center, and those in red font are proposed IRR provision. No, those in black are lifted from the law. Unsolicited proposals submitted to the implementing agency shall not be considered as valid unless simultaneously or subsequently submitted to the PPP center. The PPP center shall issue acknowledgement on the day of the receipt of the proposal. But if the proposal is received outside of the business hours, then it shall be acknowledged the following working day. The PPP center shall determine the completeness and the appropriate approving body within 10 calendar days from receipt. I just want to share how this proposal or how this provision in the law ended up. No, this is just to disclose and just so we will all have the same appreciation. This is actually not part of what was proposed by the executive branch when we were proposing the PPP code. However, after so much deliberations and many of our legislators, no, used to be local chief executives themselves, according to them, and I am just echoing this, sometimes the problem with but of course the PPP center can validate this, no, based on our experience. Sometimes many local government units don't have the technical capacity to assess voluminous data and technical documents being submitted by unsolicited proponents. So what happens is they give the original proponent status, proceeds to processing the project, and then in the middle, either may makamonitor or may mag-call out. In the middle, they will realize the project has incomplete information, and it causes delays because sometimes they have to repeat the process, etc. So the legislator said we need to retain the autonomy of local government units in terms of deciding on whether they want to proceed with the project or not, but let that decision be made or be premised on a complete set of information. PPP Center, you determine whether the information to decide is sufficient to enable the decision, and you have only 10 calendar days to do that. After 10 calendar days, if deemed complete, the PPP Center shall endorse the proposal to the LGU, copy furnish the private proponent, no? And the LGU, the implementing agency, will conduct a detailed evaluation within 90 calendar days from endorsement by the PPP Center. If the LGU decides to accept the proposal, it shall proceed to the negotiation stage. The letter of acceptance by the implementing agency shall include the mechanics and the commencement date of the negotiation. Now, if the IA decides to reject the proposal, such shall be returned to the private proponent with corresponding justification. If the proposal is deemed approved because there is an action on the part of the IA, the next step is to proceed to negotiation stage, no, after receiving the notice to be sent by the PPP Center. Now, if the project is incomplete, the PPP Center shall return the proposal to the private proponent, and that decision is final and non-appealable. So just to recap, submission will first be done to the PPP Center for the completeness check and determination of the appropriate. After the PPP Center will not decide whether they will proceed or not. It is only a completeness check. After our endorsement of a complete proposal, the LGU has the discretion to either proceed or not proceed. So you can actually upon receipt, no, don't need to spend 90 days doing the detailed evaluation. As a matter of policy, and the IRR will list the grounds for possible revocation. So for example, you're already doing a similar project, then you can use that as ground to reject the unsolicited proposal. So assuming you decided to proceed, no, the next phase is negotiation. But before that, in case there are similar proposals, because the law says there can be unsolicited proposals within a 10 calendar day period. Okay? So upon submission of the first unsolicited proposals, we can entertain similar proposals up to the 10th calendar day. How do we process that? Similar with the first one, it shall undergo first a completeness check by the PPP Center, and only those complete shall be endorsed to the approving body, to the LGU, to the implementing agency, for the conduct of the detailed evaluation. And the LGU has until the 90th day of the last submitted unsolicited proposal to do the detailed evaluation. And from among all these similar proposals, the IA will choose sino ang magpo-proceed sa negotiation phase. Okay? Before, if you look at the PPP of the BOT law, the problem is that there is a first-in-time approach. You cannot look at the second proposal without rejecting the first one. And the concerns that we have received here is that paano pag mas maganda yung pangalawang proposal? Or paano naman kung na-reject ko yung first proposal, pero nung tinignan ko yung second proposal, mas maganda pa pala yung first. So, the new law, provides that discretion to local government units to select from among similar proposals sino ang magpo-proceed sa negotiation phase. Now, in case the IA or the LGU fails to act on multiple similar proposals, the first submitted proposal shall be deemed approved to go to the negotiation stage without prejudice to the provisions under Section 32 of the Code. So Section 32 is the penal provision. No? So if there are inactions, may mga karampatang penalties tayo, no? Imprisonment and fine, which is not present in the old law. Now, assuming natapos na natin yung detailed evaluation, nakapili na tayo kung sino yung gusto nating ka-negotiate, the negotiation shall be conducted within 80 calendar days but not less than 30 days, and it may be extended up to a maximum of 150 calendar days. The IRR is proposed to include sino ang members ng negotiation committee, and the PPP Governing Board will issue the specific guidelines on the conduct of negotiations. If the negotiation is successful, then the original proponent status will be granted and will be valid for 1 year. No? Otherwise, mag-expire yon and the agency can accept any similar proposal na, no? And also, if the negotiation is successful, the LGU will submit to the sanggunian, the approving body, to seek the approval. Dati sa BOT law, 2 beses kang bumabalik sa appropriate approving body. Ngayon, isa lang, no? After negotiation. But this one, I understand, is not really new in many LGUs because maraming local PPP codes, ganito na yung process. So, na-adapt yon dito sa PPP code. Now, in case of failure of negotiation, the IA shall reject the proposal in writing with the justification. And the LGU shall inform the PPP Center for monitoring purposes, and the LGU can accept a new answer proposal or bid out the project through the solicited track. Okay, the original proponent status cannot be forever. It expires, as mentioned, 1 year from the grant of the IA. If we go to the next slide. Okay. The procurement process, no? So from the publication of comparative proposal all the way to the conduct of the right to match and the award and execution are pretty much the same. Nothing new. What is in the revised 2022 IRR of the BOT law was just captured here. Ang nabago lang is really sa procurement, dati 60 days lang ang challenge process. Right now, it is minimum 90 calendar days, maximum 1 year, depending on the complexity of a project. No? And it will be set by the sanggunian. Okay, so still it's local autonomy. Question, bakit ang layo nung range, no, from 90 to 1 year? The explanation is that 90 days might be, enough for a government center, for example. But if we're talking of a transport project, a network of transport project, or an airport, for example, then probably 90 days bidding or challenge period might be too short. So that flexibility is being given to the sanggunian. Okay. Unsolicited proposal. Pwede ba tayong magkaroon ng government share sa mga unsolicited proposal? The answer is yes. The IRR will provide for a window, no, where the LGU may negotiate or the sanggunian may require that the unsolicited proposal include a share in the revenues of the proposed project. Question. Pwede ba nandun sa listahan namin ng solicited PPP, nasa list of PPP projects, pero may mag-o-offer na unsolicited proposal? Before, if you look at the BOT law, it is allowed, but you have to prove that there is new concept or technology. That rule has been dropped. Okay? Wala nang ganong requirement. Even if nasa priority list or nasa list of PPP projects, yung isang infrastructure project, it can be subject of an unsolicited proposal provided that the private proponent shall reimburse the development costs incurred by the LGU for the last 3 years. No? And that will be posted as part of the information provided in the list of projects, no, that we were describing earlier. Kaya sabi natin kanina, mahalaga siya dun sa unsolicited proposal. So it will be reimbursed, no? Ang question, sinong magre-reimburse? Answer, kung sino yung mananalo sa challenge process. If the original proponent will win during the comparative challenge process, they will be reimbursing the development costs incurred for the project. If it's the challenger, then sila yung magre-reimburse. Okay, but there is no additional criteria na sa new concept or technology. The idea is that if we want private sector participation, we let them help us through our solicited or through our priority projects that are part of our development plans. Okay, now we go to PBAC. Dati, in many LGUs, it's called the JV Selection Committee or the JVSC. Now it's called the PBAC. No, the IRR will provide for a minimum member, so minimum membership, so that the chairman could be the administrator or at least a third-ranking permanent official, the treasurer or the accountant of the local IA, the planning and development coordinator or engineer of the local IA, the legal officer, 2 representatives from the sanggunian, and 2 representatives from the development council. The chairperson shall appoint any of the voting members as the secretary of the PBAC. So yung items A to F, yan yung mga voting members, no? In case the local IA does not have a legal officer, sabi natin kanina, they can seek legal advice from an external legal advisor or the officer of the next higher level of LGU. In the membership, there are ongoing talks in terms of including yung LEDIP, no? Because we understand many LGUs meron ng LEDIP po. So there's an ongoing discussion towards including them either in the PPP unit or in the PBAC, and we'll definitely want your inputs, your insights, your comments, and suggestions as regards this minimum membership. There will also be non-voting members, so a technical officer from the regulatory body concerned, and the representative from the PPP Center if the PPP Center is not the procuring entity. There will also be observers, COA, the DILG Regional Office, the NEDA Regional Office, an association related to the project, and an accounting association or the facility users representative. So, now the thing is, ang question lagi ay, ano yan, hindi ba kami makakakilos kapag wala yung voting, non-voting members and observers? The answer is no, no? A quorum of the PBAC shall be composed of a simple majority of the voting members, including the chairperson. The IA may constitute more than 1 PBAC, no? Isa rin yan sa lagi naming tanong. hindi kailangan isa lang yung PBAC. If you want, you can have different PBACs for different projects. Dahil minimum yung membership, the LGU can add. So that is still within the rights of the LGU. And the role of the PBAC is basically everything that has to do with the procurement and the bidding process of a PPP project. Okay, so non-voting members and observers, hindi required ang present before the PBAC could act, no? But there is a requirement, no? They should be consulted. They shall be notified at least 7 calendar days before yung specific milestones ng project, and failure of to do that, no, shall be subject to the penal provisions under the code. Just to clarify, the absence of the non-voting members and observers shall not nullify the PBAC proceedings. Okay, and then for the tender documents, these are not new. These are in the revised 2022 IRR. Many of them actually nakamirror din sa mga PPP codes ng mga LGUs, joint venture codes. What I want to highlight here is the disclosure of tender documents. The law requires that tender documents be considered public, but the timing as to when these will be published will depend on the implementing agencies PBAC. No? So in this case, the LGU, kasi that could be part of the bidding strategy. If we go to the next item, the review and approval of PPP contracts. No? For national projects, the PPP Center will review the compliance with the approved PTCs. The Statutory Council, so this will be OSG, OGCC, for compliance with applicable laws, rules, and regulations. And then DOF if there are national government undertakings. Sa local PPP projects, iba ang review process. It will only be the Statutory Council to check for the compliance with the applicable laws, rules, and regulations, and DOF, but only if there is a national government undertaking. Otherwise, it's just your Statutory Council who's supposed to review your draft PPP contract. Note, however, that in the law, if the executed PPP contract contains provisions which are contrary with the approved PTCs and are grossly disadvantageous to the government, the contract shall be null and void without prejudice to the provisions under Section 32 of the Code. I will skip this slide because this is more applicable to OGCC and OSG in national projects. Okay, there is also a protest mechanism. For local PPP projects, the protest mechanism shall include a motion for reconsideration to the PBAC, which needs to be filed within 3 calendar days from receipt of the decision, and then 7 calendar days for PBAC to decide. After which, an appeal to the local chief executive within 3 calendar days from receipt, and the chief executive will have 30 calendar days to decide. No? Note that doon sa filing sa local chief executive, there will be a protest fee to be charged. No? So that's it. And then if we go to the next item, this is a recap before we open the floor for questions and open forum. This is for solicited. Again, for solicited process flow. So the agency, the LGU, develops a project. Those in orange are applicable to local PPP projects. So if needed, kaya broken line yung boxes ng first 2 orange boxes. Kung kailangan ng RDC endorsement, so yes, ikukuha tayo niyan, or ng ICC, no, kung may national government undertaking. Otherwise, diretso na sa Local Development Council. And the Local Development Council will send its confirmation/endorsement to the Sanggunian within 30 calendar days. The Sanggunian will have 120 calendar days. If approved, they go to the procurement stage. That would be the green box. And as usual, notice yung publication for the invitation to pre-qualify and bid. And then the issuance of the tender documents, the bid proper, and then the award and execution of the contract. For unsolicited proposals, medyo mas mahaba, no? It looks overwhelming, but hopefully these ones will help you clarify the process. Again, the entry point is with the PPP Center for a 10 calendar day completeness check and determination of appropriate approving body. If it's not complete, it will not reach the LGU. If it's complete, the PPP Center will endorse it to the LGU. And then the LGU, we're now on the orange, peach box. The IA or the LGU shall conduct a detailed evaluation. If it decides to reject, then it will be returned to the proponent. If it decides to accept, we proceed to the green part of our screen, which is the conduct of negotiation. Maximum of 150 calendar days, including extension. If the negotiation is a failure, then the LGU shall declare it so and return the project. If the IA and the proponent reaches a successful nego, the IA shall confer the original proponent status of the private proponent, and then they will proceed to the challenge process. So, I'm sorry, to the approving body. So, these are the orange cells in our screen, similar dun sa solicited, only when needed yung RDC and ICC clearance. Otherwise, diretso sa LDC, endorsement sa sanggunian, and the sanggunian will have 120 calendar days to decide. If disapproved, then of course, project will not proceed. OPS can be revoked or be resubmitted, no, if hindi pa expired yung OPS. If approved, then we go to the comparative challenge process. So right to match, and then award and contract execution. I will now pause here for questions, comments, suggestions. Thank you.
Thank you, DD Jeff. Now we proceed to the questions for the first block. May we also remind everyone to kindly put your name and LGU whenever you have questions or inputs. Okay, so for the first question, ang PPP contracts po ba na inabot ng effectivity ng new PPP code will still be in effect without amending the original provisions of the contract? This is from Sir Andrew Saulog of LGU Kalibo.
Yeah, okay. So, linawin natin, no? Pirmado na ang PPP contract bago mag-take effect ang law. And the date is December 23, no? Ang effectivity ng batas is December 23. If the contract has been signed prior to December 23, walang gagalaw doon sa kontrata. No infringement of rights, it will be as is. Ang application ng PPP code will only be suppletorily, which means kung merong mga reporting requirements on the status of projects, nasa na yung construction, ano ng ilang percent na, etc., yun lang yung mag-a-apply, no? Not on the content or the terms of the contract. Next question, please.
Next question, this is from Sir Dom Puzon from the Provincial Government of La Union. First, can we already adopt the applicable proposed IRR provisions as early as now so that we can move forward with our PPP projects? And the next question is, may we be provided with a copy of the proposed IRR, including its templates, forms, and procedures?
Nako, thank you very much, Sir Dom, for asking this question. You don't need to wait for the implementing rules and regulations to process your project. The PPP Governing Board on December 21, no, issued an interim guidelines which will be the rules in effect between December 23 until the IRR is issued. Nandun na rin po yung forms and templates that needs to be followed. My colleagues will send the link to the page. As we speak, we are improving our website para mas madaling mahanap ang mga bagay na ito. May FAQs din doon. But for now, we will send the link, and you can contact us if you have questions in navigating itong mga forms na ito. But just to tell everyone, the PPP Governing Board issuance on the interim guidelines for PPP projects, ito yung legal basis natin para maproseso yung mga projects even without the IRR. If you read the interim guidelines, it will more or less provide you with the same principles. That the project can move forward. All of the previous processes will remain valid, and you can process the project moving forward. Okay, so I hope that answers the question, and I hope this answers many questions already. I know maraming tanong ang ating mga LGUs on this one.
Okay, next question. What if one of the approving body disapproved? For example, the local sanggunian disapproved while the national is okay. What will happen now, the project, considering that it should continue?
Yeah, good question. Only that implementing agency who has secured the approving body's approval can implement or can continue with the project, which means in yung terms as structured cannot proceed, so kunyari may national IA tapos may LGU. Pagka LGU lang yung nakakuha ng approval, the LGU can proceed with the project but without the national government entity. So that's the thing there, because of course we want to respect the process of the national government and of course the autonomy of the local government units. Just the same, kung LGU to LGU naman, if one sanggunian approves and the other sanggunian disapproves, then only the one that has the authority to proceed can proceed.
Okay, next question. This is from Sir Christian Cordero of Bataan PPPIC. Since the PPP Center will check the completeness of the documentary requirements, can LGUs still ask for additional documents after the endorsement of the PPP Center?
Okay, very good question. So right now in the draft IRR, it is silent, and we are taking this as a good input for discussion of the IRR committee, whether additional documents may be requested. But clearly, the law does not prohibit that, as part of the LGU's due diligence. However, we are designing, or we have designed, the completeness check at the PPP center level, at a level by which, as far as we think, would be enough for the LGU to decide on the project. Of course, under the premise of ease of doing business, ideally the completeness check that we have set would be sufficient to provide the implementing agency with a holistic view of the project. Okay, but yeah, so that's the long and short of it. Thank you.
Next question we have here from Sir John Crisostomo. How will LGUs like us to determine if the project physically overlaps with another government project, or if the project negatively affects the economic benefits, demand, and or financial viability of another government project?
Yeah, thank you for this question. So at least two things. First, the IRR will define what we mean by physically overlaps, negatively affects, etc., etc. So there will be that guidance in the IRR. Number 2, in the case of unsolicited proposals, that determination will be part of the 10 calendar day period. That will be that 10 calendar day completeness check period of the PPP center. So that's for unsolicited proposals. For solicited proposals, it will be the LGU who will it will be the implementing agency who will determine it. Note, however, that itong pagdetermine ng physical overlap is only with regard to whether or not an RDC endorsement is required. This does not pertain if you're referring to the section in the law which states that if you meet any of the 5 criteria, the approving body will be the ICC. That is not applicable for LGU PPPs. Okay? Hindi yun mag-a-apply sa LGU. That is only for national projects. Sa LGU po, ang approving body natin laging sanggunian. Wala nang aakyat sa national government. It's only the sanggunian. Pagka bumangga, mag-overlap sa isang national government project, hindi pa rin po ICC. But an endorsement from the RDC will be what is required. Okay, I hope that clarifies the question. Thank you.
Next question from Sir Christian Cordero. On the expiration of OPS after a year, what happens if the proponent still wants to proceed with the project? Will the proponent undergo the same process to secure OPS again? Will there be exceptions to the validity of 1-year OPS?
Okay, at least 2 points again. First, nag-i-stop na yung time bomb ng ating OPS expiration once ma-reach na yung procurement phase or the invitation for comparative challenge, no? So again, after negotiation, you confer the original proponent status. That's when the 1-year validity will start, no? So umaandar yung 1 year mo from the time na ma-confer yung OPS, pero safe ka na kapag ka na-issue na yung comparative challenge process within 1 year. The idea is fairly straightforward. We want to incentivize both the public sector and the private sector to implement the project as early as possible. The 1-year deadline is being put there as a cap because we don't want the LGU being hostage, no? That just because my original proponent status pero hindi naman ma-comply yung mga requirements for approval and then for procurement, we are giving that deadline, which means mag-e-expire na yung OPS. So to the question, what will happen? Pag nag-expire yon, there's nothing that binds you with the private sector already. The LGU can now talk to other private sector partner. Okay? Question, paano kapag inabot ng yung 1 year sa kalagitnaan ng challenge process? Again, hindi yun mangyayari because nag-stop yung ating deadline or yung counting ng 1 year kapag na-issue na natin yung comparative challenge process. Okay? Now, question, will the proponent undergo the same process? Yes, kunyari mag-expire yung kanilang OPS, gusto nilang mag-renew. Yes, they can reapply and follow the same process. But I will caution you that maybe there must be something not good if hindi nila ma-process yung project within 1 year. Because if we look at our timelines, from the time ma-confer yung original proponent status, Negotiation is maximum 150 days. From 150 days, ang approval process maximum 120 calendar days. I'm sorry, hindi pala kasama yung 150. So, from negotiation, ang bibilangin lang natin 120 calendar days, may approval ka na. So, dapat may decision na yon whether you can proceed or not proceed. Kahit magpaulit-ulit pa kayo ng approval process, at least twice or thrice, there might be a problem why you cannot reach the next stage within 1 year. So, yun, I want to put that caveat as I answer this question. And will there be exceptions to the validity of 1 year OPS? I think that is the exception. No? Once ma-achieve mo na yung publication of invitation for comparative challenge, nag-stop na yung validity clause. Mark safe na yung project, you can proceed. Okay, next question please.
Next, this is a suggestion from Sir John Montenegro. Also, LDCs will approve or endorse. IRR should understand the dynamics of this body given that they only meet only a few in a year. Imagine in Manila, I think it's 900 members for their LDC. LDC Execom should endorse upon complete staff work of the Infrastructure or Economic Sectoral Committee.
Yes, thank you for this suggestion. We hear you, sir, no? So the answer to your question is not all. The proposal is that it will be the Execom who will be endorsing. It's not the entire LDC, only the Execom. But good input on upon complete staff work of the Infra or Econ Sectoral Committee. Now, as to the meeting of only a few times in a year, the IRR is also proposing that the Execom, the LDC Execom, convene on at least a monthly basis, no? Except when there is no PPP project to be processed. And we thought of this. This is not a lazy solution. In the law, actually, the NEDA board, which is chaired by the president himself, no, they have the same problem. It's not always that the NEDA board convenes because the president is very busy, but the law requires that the NEDA board convenes once a month so that PPP projects could be processed. So we are just taking that same frame as we propose this monthly meeting of the LDC. But of course, again, this is this one is just a proposal at the moment. This is not written in the law itself. This is in the IRR. So we are very much open to any suggestions in terms of how this could be operationalized. Thank you.
Okay, next question, also from Sir John Montenegro. How about the PBAC in NCR? There's no NEDA NRO in the NCR. Will it be MMDA?
Good question, sir. To be perfectly honest, we have not looked into this. Thank you for raising this. We will use this as input, no, as we polish the IRR draft that we have at the moment.
Okay, next question. This is from Ms. Monica Lavares. What will happen if LGU cannot fully give its recommendation on the detailed evaluation and would require additional time? What should the LGU do?
Thank you for that question, Ma'am Monica. Unfortunately, the law is quite strict in terms of timeline. The maximum given for detailed evaluation is 90 calendar days. And the penal clause provides for penalties, no, if there is inaction on the part of the parties who are supposed to be acting on the proposals. So what we can give you is that the PPP Center, which has been institutionalized in the law, we have a PDMF. We can procure, transaction advisors who could help you do the detailed evaluation, or probably our in-house technical people can also help you analyze. But as of the moment, the timelines in the law are taken quite seriously given the penal provision. But if you have comments, inputs, suggestions on how this could work, we'll be definitely happy to receive them and raise them to the IRR committee for discussion. Thank you.
Next question. This is from Sir Melvin Arevalo. All right. Another.
What is happening on our screen?
Okay, this is from Mr. Melvin Arevalo. Just would like to inquire lang po sana if all received unsolicited go through the PPC for the review of its completeness, or can the LGU can review the same should the LGU has its own P4 ordinance?
Okay, so many elements in this question. Thank you for raising this. So first, the LGU P4 ordinance is inoperable insofar as processing of PPPs are concerned, no? So hindi na po tayo pwede magkaroon ng LGU PPP ordinance on how to process PPP projects because we will follow the process of the PPP code. That's number one. Number two, yung can we already proceed to doing our own completeness check? The answer is depende kung kailan na-submit yung project na pinag-uusapan natin. If the project was received before December 23, 2023, hindi pa po effective yung law noon. So what you should do is to check the interim guidelines because nandun po ang instruction kung papaano ipaprocess yung mga projects na na-receive prior to December 23, 2023. Kapag naman po after December 23, 2023, may na-receive kayong unsolicited proposal, nandun rin po yung detalye sa interim guidelines. So, iba-iba yung stages doon. Pero kung, kunyari, papasok pa lang, no? Like as we speak, wala pa. Pero may unsolicited proponent na lalapit sa inyo, please advise them that the entry point is now with the PPP Center. So, the 10-day completeness check will only begin once the PPP Center has acknowledged the receipt of that proposal. Okay. I hope that's clear. Next question, please.
This is from Ms. Deve Laksama. Does the PPP shall be included in the annual procurement plan of the LGU like among other procurements?
The answer po is no. Yun pong ating annual procurement plan is being prepared or is being submitted as a requirement as part of the 9184, RA 9184 or the General Procurement Act, no? Ito po ay isang separate na batas on how we will be procuring public-private partnership. So, labas po ito doon sa 9184. So, the short answer is no. The explanation is what I have provided.
Okay, next question. From Sir John Montenegro. In relation to my previous comment, given that approval is disapproved by, let's say, the local sanggunian, can it be appealed? Can the approval also be elevated to a higher sanggunian, example, through provincial?
Yeah, yun pong unahin ko yung second question, no? The answer is no. We cannot elevate it to the next higher sanggunian. The law has given the power to the sanggunian concerned. So kung sino yung sanggunian ng inyong LGU, kung ang IA ay municipal, then the municipal sanggunian, sila po yung may authority over your PPP project approval, no? Hindi po pwede yung mailipat doon sa next higher approving body or next higher sanggunian. Now, on the first question, na meron bang appeal mechanism? Right now in the draft, there's none. It's stemming from the provision in the law that states the decision of the approving body is final and executory. However, nothing stops or nothing in the law prohibits the LGU, if it's a solicited project, or the original proponent, no, in case of an unsolicited proposal, to resubmit and start the process anew, no, to get and to try to get the approval the next time around.
Okay, thank you very much, Jeff. That's it for the questions in the second block. Before we proceed, please be reminded to fill out the attendance form. Remember that we need your attendance so we can send the presentation materials to your registered email addresses. Also, we still have few items up for discussions and consultations, so we will be spilling over lunch. If you have your lunch with you, you can have your lunch while attending this session. Some of the questions that are not yet addressed will be up for the last open forum. So with that, Jeff, we can now proceed to the last part of the discussion.
Okay, I now be heard? There you go. I'm willing to proceed. But I'm conscious of the time, Shallow. And if this is going to be a working session, would we like to give everyone a few minutes to get their lunch so that they could listen while we speak?
All right, sir. We can have a 10-minute break before we proceed to the third part. So see you after 10 minutes. Thank you. May I call back the Jeff?
Yes, okay, we're back. Again, apologies for extending, but would like to cover as much as we can. No? So we're down to our last 5 topics. These are, excuse me, these are relatively faster than the rest. No? Yung second block, yung marami talaga tayong details. Now, if we go to the next slide, award and execution of PPP projects. Just like before, it's the PBAC. In the terms of some local PPP codes, the JV selection committee will still be, but now they will be called PBAC. They will still be recommending the award, including a detailed evaluation or the assessment report within 7 calendar days from the date of the completion of the financial evaluation. It will be the head of the agency, or in this case, our local chief executives, who will decide on the award of the project within 7 calendar days from the submission of the PBAC of the recommendation to award. And the PBAC shall post the notice of award and the bidding results within the 7 calendar days from the issuance and in the websites or any digital platform of the PPP Center and the implementing agency. Don't be confused on the digital platforms. This was put here because we understand not local government units have their official websites and are instead using other digital platforms for their online communications to the public. So that will suffice. And finally, the winning bidder shall submit the documentary requirements included in the notice of award within 20 calendar days from official receipts. A receipt. What are these documentary requirements? As proposed in the IRR provision, these would include items 1 to 5. No? So the performance security, the proof of commitment for the required equity contribution, the proof of firm commitments from a reputable financial institution. If they already have an SPC or a JVC, then they need to submit a proof of their registration in accordance with Philippine laws and any other conditions imposed by the implementing agency. Failure to comply with the conditions precedent for the execution of the PPP contract within the period or as extended will result in the forfeiture of the proposed security and the revocation of the notice of award, which means, and this is allowed under the law, you can go to the next qualified or next responsive bidder. Now, on the formation of SPC or the JV company, the IA may require the winning bidder to incorporate with SEC subject to existing laws and regulations. The SPC or the JVC that will be created shall assume all the rights and obligations of the winning private proponent. These things are not new. No? In the revised 2022 IRR, these rules have already been stated. The winning private proponent shall also subscribe to and pay for the significant or principal shareholding or controlling interest in the SPC or the JVC. In case there are consortium members, no, all members shall present proof of contractual or other legally binding ties to a relationship with the SPC or the JVC for the development and implementation of the project. Question: what if there are withdrawals or substitutions of a member? Is that allowed? In case of withdrawals, here are the answers. No? The remaining members or shareholders shall still be legally, technically, and financially capable. So otherwise, that wouldn't be allowed, or that would be a violation under the contract and the IRR. A withdrawal made in violation of the IRR shall be a ground for disqualification or cancellation of the contract, as the case may be, plus the forfeiture of the winning private proponent's bid or performance security that was required of them when we issued the notice of award. The implementing agency shall inform in writing the PPP Center of such changes within 5 calendar days for monitoring purposes. Still, on award and execution of PPP projects, and nothing quite new here. In terms of the validity of bids, again, these are still in the revised 2022 IRR. Some local PPP codes have also adopted this. So the validity of bid is up to 180 calendar days from the opening of the bid. Securities shall be returned to the winning bidder as soon as the PPP contract is signed by the winning bidder. Extension of the validity of bids may be allowed provided that bidder shall not be allowed to modify or revise the price or any other substantial aspects of their bids. In terms of execution of the PPP contract, the contract shall be signed within 5 calendar days from the receipt of the notice by the winning bidder of their compliance with their notice of compliance with the requirements under the notice of award. The original signed copy of the PPP contract shall be submitted to the approving body, so that would be the Sanggunian in the case of LGUs, and the PPP Center within 5 calendar days after the signing of the contract. If, for whatever reason, the parties or the proponent fail to execute the PPP contract, we can, as mentioned earlier, consider the next most responsive bidder. If the proponent refuses to enter into a contract, its bid security shall be forfeited in favor of the implementing agency. Now, this one is new provision. No, there is what we call, the law has created a new fund that's called the Risk Management Fund. This is basically a contingent liability fund where implementing agencies may tap to be used for payments if they fail to do their obligations under their contract. So alam natin normally may mga penalties, di ba? If the government fails to deliver an obligation, may accompanying or commensurate penalties yon. The risk management fund is supposed to cover for those, no? But in the law, this is primarily intended for national PPP projects. But the law allows, in the case of local PPPs, two things to highlight. No, first, local PPP projects, the LGUs may create their own RMF. So gagawa kayo with your own ordinance, etc. The creation of a similar fund. Or if the LGU wants to tap in the National Risk Management Fund, then that would be considered as a financial government undertaking. So the practical implication is that there will be contribution on the part of the local government unit, and the details of these will be through an issuance by the DBCC, or the Development Budget Committee, Coordination Committee. If we go to the next slide, in terms of regulation of tariff, all regulating bodies, no, so kunyari TRB, yung ating mga water regulating bodies, they shall be required to issue the guidelines and frameworks on how PPP projects will be regulated, no, or how tariffs will be set, consulted, analyzed, and of course approved or disapproved. And those issuance will be published in the websites of the PPP Center and the concerned regulating body within 180 calendar days from the effectivity, after the effectivity of the IRR. So the idea is that the tariff regulation for PPP projects will be transparent to all stakeholders concerned. Now, on monitoring of PPP projects, there will be a PPP Governing Board issuance that will be covering all PPP projects, no, both of national government and GOCCs, as well as that of local government units. So this will be applicable even to LGUs, So as soon as this is ready, we will definitely inform all stakeholders concerned. And finally, a proposed provision in the IRR would be general provisions, no? So unless expressly provided, references to any law, decree, etc. Will be replaced, no? So long as, so yung references to BOT law, for the instance, it will be replaced by the PPP code so long as there is no impairment of obligations of contract. Now, in computing for the period indicated in the code and in the IRR, the first day shall be excluded, and the last day will be included pursuant to Article 3 of the Civil Code of the Philippines. Because we have been receiving a lot of questions now on how to calibrate our counting dun sa mga deadlines. So this is given here as a guidance. And finally, in case the deadline for each activity falls on a non-working day, like Saturday or Sunday, or there are legal holidays or non-working days as declared by our local chief executives or government officials that are authorized to make such declaration, then the deadline shall be moved to the next working day. Okay? So, kasama pa rin sa counting ang mga holidays at mga non-working days, pero kapag yung deadline for the act falls on a non-working day, that will automatically be moved to the next working day. I think this is the last slide. We want to give more time for questions, comments, and suggestions to our stakeholders. We'd be happy to hear them now. Thank you.
All right, let us now proceed to the open forum. First question, in slide 42, as regards securing clearance of final draft contract, does statutory counsel include the external legal counsel opted by municipalities which have no legal officer, or is it restricted to the provincial or city legal officer?
Yeah, as per discussion, it should be prescribed by the Department of Justice. So we will provide a clearer language to avoid confusion, no, in the proposed IRR. Thanks for this input.
All right, next question from LGU Sagay. Under PPP, can the LGU avail of funding assistance from hydroelectric project?
Okay, so there are ongoing discussions for energy-related projects, but the idea is, in the status quo, hydroelectric projects may be undertaken via PPPs. So if that will be retained in this version of the IRR, then yes, there could be funding assistance. But let me clarify this: funding assistance for the development of the project through the PDMF. Now, if it's about funding assistance for the development or repayment in the form of availability payment, then that will have to undergo through the approvals process. No, if you intend to avail of the funding assistance from the national government, then the ICC will have to clear that. Otherwise, it's just the sanggunian. I hope that clarifies it. Thank you.
Next question. In case of local PPP projects, who would be the statutory counsel? Will it be the legal office of the LGU? What if there are none? Can the provincial legal be tapped? If LGU will create RMF, what will be the procedure? And can it be sourced in the IRA or what?
Okay, thanks for these questions. The first one, I think we've answered earlier. No, so we'll provide the a clearer language in the IRR. As to item 2, the IRR does not provide for the procedure, no? It only says it will be if you are to create your new RMF, you can either pattern it to the RMF issuance to be issued by the DBCC, but it will have to be created through an ordinance, no? Because that's going to be an LGU initiative, an LGU fund. Can it be sourced in the IRA? Unless there will be prohibitions, you may, but subject to your LGU procedures.
Okay, next question. How much is the protest fee? Same po ba to sa 9184? This is from Sir Franklin T. Talendana.
Yeah, it's not the same as the 9184. What the in the draft IRR, it's going to be a range, a percentage range of the project cost, no? And the determination will be through the PBAC. So it's a decision to be made by the PBAC. At least that is what is in the proposed IRR. If approved, then that will be the case. But the short answer is no, it's not the same, no?
All right, next question. Will there be specific guidelines in the IRR for the extension of the 150 calendar days for the detailed negotiation? Relatively, will evaluation of the merits for the request for extension and approval or disapproval be up solely to the implementing agency? From Sir Edgar Arvin Lim Dolor.
Yeah, so I'll answer this in two separate items, no? The first one is on the specific guidelines for the extension. So what the IRR is currently providing, at least the draft, is that the negotiation process would be at least 30 calendar days to 80 calendar days. So that's the general rule, the max, no? And this is based on actual experience where even big ticket projects can actually reach the end of a negotiation within an 80 calendar day period. But since the law is giving up to 150 calendar days, then an extension may be granted. The details will not be in the IRR, but rather in the PPP Governing Board issuance, which will be issued by the PPP Governing Board. Now,
Next.
on the second part, will the evaluation of the merits for the request extension be solely up to the implementing agency? Normally, yes, through the PBAC, but the detailed guidelines for the PPP-GB is expected to provide for grounds, no? Parang general grounds for consideration of the PBAC. But the decision will be made by the PBAC.
All right, next question. From Ms. Millet Enriquez, is the conduct of public consultations solely up to the implementing agency in the absence of guidelines in the code?
The short answer is yes, no? What the law and the IRR is saying is that it is required to be conducted. We do have a PPP Governing Board issuance, and this is available online, and which still stands, no, unless revoked by the PPP-GB, it's still in effect. It's a guidelines on how public consultations and the timing of which could be done. So that's available in our website. Thank you.
All right, next question, please. From Sir Dom Puzon, if there is no LO and municipality opts to engage the services of an outside counsel, must he or she be accredited by the PPP Center, considering that we are talking about clearances to be issued by him or her, and that the municipality is bound by his or her opinion on that contract?
Yeah, okay. So the short answer is no. At least in the draft IRR, well, number one, there is no such requirement in the law, and so in the draft IRR, there is no such provision as well. The liberty is given to the local government unit. No, I think the idea is that it we just recognize that there are some municipalities who wouldn't have their legal officers, and so they are given this opportunity to seek external help. Note, however, that if you look into the processes that we've presented, the legal officer is always just a member of a bigger committee. So I'm not sure about the clearances being pertained to. Although I get the idea that probably this person will be recommending, no, to the body, but no such requirement for accreditation.
All right, next slide, please. These are suggestions from Sir Joey Benter. My humble suggestions for the minimum voting members of local PBAC, chair, administrator, and the members are planning and development coordinator, legal officer, LEDIP officer, accountant and treasurer, engineer or general service officer, one representative from Sanggunian, and two representatives from LDC.
Thank you for this. Very helpful and consistent actually with the ongoing discussions we're having as we draft the IRR. But special mention to Mr. Joey Benter is a classmate of mine sa Saldiwa 41. So shout out to my Saldiwa 41 classmates.
All right, so that ends our open forum. Thank you, Jeff, for the comprehensive discussion. And thank you, everyone, for your active participation. As mentioned earlier, for those questions that are not addressed during the open forum, we will be sharing with you the list of Q&A via email. So we've covered a lot of questions and inputs today. And if anything further arises, kindly scan the QR code or follow the link for your inputs, comments, and suggestions to the IRR.
Yeah, Shelo, sorry. Can we flash on the screen? So it says here kasi attendance form with okay, this one. So let's invite everyone. Let's point them to the right link on where they can submit their inputs, comments, suggestions. So that's the code and the link. We invite everyone to please send your general and specific queries, as this will guide us in drafting of the IRR. Thank you again. Back to you, Shalo.
All right, thank you very much, Jeff. And as we wrap up the session, may I share with you a few reminders. All right, so the presentation materials will be shared to the attendees through the registered email address in the attendance form. Please do not post in social media the presentation materials. Only the shareable materials are those uploaded in the PPP Center's website. Please also accomplish the evaluation form using the QR code or the link that is flashed on the screen. The e-certificates of the attendance will be issued to those who accomplish both the attendance and evaluation forms. And please also note that the form is limited to one response per participant and will be only accessible until January 16, 2024. So we will give you an ample time to scan the QR code and or follow the link that is flashed in the screen. Next, we will flash the QR code and link to the attendance sheet. The activity. Let's hear some final words from DED Jeff.
Yeah, so hi again, everyone. Just a very quick words of thanks to our partner, the DILG, for helping us gather everyone here. I think this is another record attendance as far as our local capacity initiatives and local consultation sessions are concerned. We are looking forward to your inputs, suggestions. On behalf of the IRR committee, we will keep you posted on the developments on this IRR. We are hoping for everyone's success in our PPP projects. Let's work together to make this work. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, DED Jeff. And now, may I request everyone once again to please open their cameras for the photo opportunity. All right, so at the count of 5, let's hold our smiles and my colleagues from the PPP Center will capture. All right, thank you, DD Jeff, and thank you, everyone. And that concludes our stakeholder consultation for the implementing rules and regulations of the Republic Act 11966 or the Public-Private Partnership Code of the Philippines. Thank you, everyone, and enjoy the rest of the day.